Hello, everyone. My name is Eric from Etiquette, and welcome to today's live stream, this week's live stream. We are 1 hour later than usual, but I'm happy to finally be here. So today, I was supposed to interview Jackie from Canada. So that's why we're starting the stream 1 hour later than usual. And Jackie is here. I'm just going to give a couple of minutes before we start just to say hello to everyone. So I'm just going to give it a couple of minutes and then I will introduce Jackie. And for those of you who don't know, Jackie is an amazing teacher and she's also an author. And you know what? I have many teachers on the live stream, but I'm so excited to see Jackie. I've spoken to her before, but she's really one of my idols. She's one of the first teachers to come out and make lots of content for teachers. So I really appreciate that she's joining us today. I'm just going to give it a couple of minutes and I'll say hi to some people. Usually we start this stream 1 hour earlier, so I'm so grateful if you guys made it. I know some of you must have been confused. I did put out the post, but I hope you can join us, even though it's a little bit different. Bonnie Esther was here an hour ago, and she said, "Good morning, you all from Massachusetts, USA." Bonnie Esther, always lovely. I don't know if you made it now. And then our best friend, BM. Do you love me better than all of your other viewers? No, I love everyone equally, but BM, I really appreciate all the questions you ask me and always showing up. So you know what? I'm not. I can say that I love you more, but I do appreciate all that you do for the channel. So yeah, everyone. For those of you who don't know, my name is Eric. I'm a teacher, and every Friday, every Sunday. Wow, I'm confused. It's so difficult. Every Sunday, I have a live stream where we talk about teaching, especially teaching English. And this week I'm very excited to have a teacher join us. So what will happen is I'll wait maybe a couple of minutes till everyone's here, just to do some, house cleaning. What is it? Yeah, just to make sure everyone is here, and then we'll start with the interview. And during the interview, I'm not going to read all the comments like I usually do. I'll probably just go through and pick out some difficult questions for Jackie, because that's what we do on here. But first, we've got Ali. Ali, good to see you. Mario, as always. And then we've got Kev. Kev, BM is Eric's biggest fan. Is BM a boy or girl? I have no idea, but I think BM is a man. That's what I'm thinking. Steve, hi, good to see you. I'm so excited too, because yeah, it's something I've really looked forward to. I try and get the best teachers on here to talk about their experiences and to share some tips, and I always learn so much. So I'm very grateful for that. Seema, hi, good to see you. WR, good. Hello, everyone. Also on LinkedIn, we've got many people joining today. And again, thank you so much for joining. Gisela, hi. Imrana, looking forward to hearing from Jackie. Yes. Okay, everyone, without further ado, let's introduce our teacher for today. Jackie Bolen. Hi.
Hi, everybody. Hi.
How are you doing today?
I am good. It's quite early where I am right now in Vancouver, Canada, but I had to set my alarm on Sunday morning, which isn't my usual thing, but I'm here and I have my coffee, so I'm fine. Yeah.
Well, I just want to say I'm so grateful that you're joining us. I know that's very difficult, but yeah, I think our viewers are going to learn a lot, and for myself too. I didn't have a chance to tell you this earlier, but I really appreciate what you've done for teachers everywhere, because you've written many books with activities, and I've learned so much from your content. So just for our viewers there, can you quickly introduce yourself?
Yeah, sure. So I taught English in South Korea for 10 years, mainly at 2 different universities there. And I taught kids for the first couple of years. And yeah, I taught kind of every possible subject you could ever imagine. But in the end, I ended up teaching academic writing, which was kind of my favorite, actually, thing to do. But I taught all the conversation classes and like public speaking, business, medical English, aviation English, all that kind of stuff. So, and I moved back to Canada about 6 years ago. But while I was in Korea, I had started a blog about teaching in Korean university, and it became quite popular. And people would send me questions all the time. And it was kind of through that that I ended up writing a book about how to get a university job in South Korea, because that was everybody's question. And I sold some copies and made a bit of money. And I was just like, oh, I actually have information that people are interested in. So I wrote a bunch more books about like ESL teaching activities. And then also I've started writing a lot of books for English learners. So for people that are preparing for, like, example, the IELTS exams, so kind of like vocabulary acquisition books, or people that want to learn like travel English or medical English, that kind of stuff. So I've kind of branched off into more books for English learners these days. So yeah, I have a podcast, Let's Talk TEFL, it's called, which Eric was on. Eric was a guest on that. And I have a YouTube channel and a few different websites and that kind of stuff. So yeah, so that's what I'm
Well,
doing these days.
I think I saw your first YouTube channel, I don't know, 8 years ago. I don't know when you started
Mm.
it, and you posted some videos on activities. And I thought that that was just so interesting, because it's so difficult to start doing something like that, putting yourself out into the
Mhm.
world and your ideas. And like you said, you actually had information that people were looking for. How many books
Mhm.
have you written so far?
These days, I think it's about just over 100, maybe something like that. I've been doing it full time for like the past 5 years, and I have a couple employees now. So the three of us can kind of have a production thing. I write it, and then one of my employees edits and proofreads it, and the other one does like the interior design and makes the cover, and then I upload it, and then we all promote it on social media and stuff. So it's kind of like a well-oiled machine these days. So
Well,
yeah.
to me, you're one of the first, like, really creators that went from just being a teacher to actually producing content for teachers, whether it be
Mhm.
books. You put out a few YouTube videos, and then I think you moved into publishing a bit more.
Yes.
But
Yeah.
was it difficult? Because I remember this one quote. It was the golden handcuffs of
Yes,
teaching in
exactly.
Korea. And that's exactly what I'm going through. So for those of you who don't know, so if you teach in Korea and you teach at a university, it's really comfortable. You can do your job, and you've got a lot of free time, but it kind of stops you from pursuing more things. So how difficult
Mhm.
was it to actually go from just being a teacher to being a creator? Was it scary? Was it more?
Uh,
What was your what was your motivation,
my
or what made you
motivation,
do that?
well, a couple things. So the first thing, I was blogging for fun. Like, I didn't even realize you could make money from it. And I always like putting my ideas kind of out there into the internet world and sharing ideas with family and friends and whoever wanted to read. Just yeah, so that's why I got started. So I didn't actually think that I would like make money from it. It was just kind of this fun hobby, and people really liked what I wrote and were interested in what I had to say, which I liked. I liked if I would like go out to, for example, a KOTISL conference, which is the professional development organization in Korea for teachers. I would go to a conference, and then people I didn't know would come up to me and say like, "Oh, I read your like latest blog post or blog entry about like whatever," and I was like, "Oh, this is so great! Like, I really liked it." That
I
kind of thing,
I
interacting
I
with people,
was
and
so sorry to interrupt you. I was out last night. I went out, and this girl came up to me and she gave me a hug. She said, "Eric, I watched your video," and I said, "I hope it's not one of the older ones, because I hated the editing and stuff." But what is your favorite platform to go on? Is it writing, publishing books? Because you're basically everywhere. You're on YouTube.
yeah.
You've got the podcast. You're on Facebook. What is your favorite platform to
My
create on?
favorite, I think, is the books, definitely. I think that I like creating content for people. I don't like spending a ton of time on social media. It's mostly my employees that are on social media. YouTube, I'm a bit of a reluctant YouTuber as well.
Mm.
So it's also not my favorite thing, but I do it. And I think I have an employee who does all the video production and stuff. That's something that I don't actually know how to do that well. So that's how I kind of got that up and running. But
Okay, well, yeah,
I think I'm more of a
mm.
writer, I think is my natural thing to do
but
for
but
sure.
I think what I'm fascinated by is that you're actually well, even though that you said you're not really interested in video creation, and you've got
Yeah.
people doing the Facebook side, you
Yeah.
must realize that it's important to, to build your name and to get your name out there.
Hmm.
But when did my question is this: so for teachers, do you think
Yeah.
it's important to start creating and start putting yourself out there? And what are the advantages of doing that?
Yeah. So, well, to be honest, I think like about 15 years ago when I started blogging and started making activity books, there just wasn't any other things out there at that time. So I remember like 15 years ago when I was teaching, I wanted to find an idea. And it was like, where do you look? You like go on ESL Cafe and there's this idea cookbook or something it was called. And it was
I
like,
remember.
it was not even organized. It was just like not even organized by like writing, speaking, whatever. It was just this list, and you would like click on it and like, oh, that's not going to work, click on the next one, like, oh, it's not going to work.
Yeah.
And it was such a waste of time, and I just was like, wow, this there needs like to be a book of like, so I wrote my first book, like 39 ESL speaking activities, like someone could just pick it up and
Mm.
then like look in that book, and it was all high quality activities with like good explanations about how to do it, teaching tips, recommendations, that kind of thing. So that was 15 years ago. So these days, though, I think the market is there's a lot of teachers that are doing similar things to me.
Mm.
So my advice is to find something quite specific and stick with
Mm.
it. It's hard to like target everybody these days just because there's a
Mm.
lot of competition. So, for example, if you're an IELTS speaking examiner or instructor, you can like start a blog about IELTS speaking. Or if you do like TOEFL writing, that's your specialty, do a thing about TOEFL writing, or business English or medical English or just whatever it is, and specialize in something and just be the best at it. And then I think you can be successful. But starting at ground
Uh,
zero, kind of targeting a whole
yeah.
general audience is not that easy to do actually these days.
Yeah, it's important to niche down and to know what you want to specialize in, and then focus on that, because I guess there are more and more people creating things, so you want to stand out for
Mhm.
doing something.
For
And
sure.
um, so when did you make that decision to go back to Canada and to say, listen, I've done teaching, but now I want to prove I want to create value for teachers, and to do that,
Mhm.
I can't just do it by teaching. I actually have to build a team, and I've got to focus on these different things. When did you make that decision to move back to Canada, or how
Well,
long
I
into
think
your journey?
sure. It actually had a bit more to do with I wasn't exactly happy living in Korea anymore. I'd been there already 10 years, and I guess all the newness had kind of worn off a little bit. It was like it was comfortable because I spoke the language and I had all my favorite restaurants and I had a car and like quite a nice apartment and that kind of thing. And I think it did feel like the golden handcuffs, actually, like you mentioned. It was almost too comfortable, and I had a very good job that paid well and lots of overtime and that kind of stuff. And I just thought, like, it is what actually motivated me to leave was no matter how good of a teacher I was, how good of student evaluations I got, there was nowhere for me to go. I was
Mhm.
just kind of like stuck in this job,
But
and
that's what you did.
literally there was nowhere.
You basically created your own path. A path that
Yes.
didn't really exist before, and
Mhm.
that's what I found so fascinating, is that now teachers are going on to teachers pay teachers, or they can write
Mhm.
books, or they can create content that might actually serve someone. So you
Mhm.
created your own path, which is amazing.
Yeah, I didn't actually really think that, it would turn out like this when I moved to Canada. When I first moved to Canada, I actually worked in the film industry here for 3 years. I did a course, for industrial first aid, and I was a first aid attendant, yeah, in the film industry for 3 years on some different, like, movies and TV shows and stuff, so I did that for a while, and, I it was, like, quite well paying, but I also didn't really, like, love it. I just thought, this isn't really what I want for my life." So, that motivated me to, like, okay, like, I was still doing blogging and stuff kind of on the side as a hobby, and, it was going quite well, and I thought, like, "Okay, if I actually spend my full-time energy on this, it will be successful." And it might be hard at first, but, yeah, it worked. it worked out.
Well, we've got a great question here from Kaushal,
Yeah,
who asks, so how is your experience so far being an author? Now, you've written or co-written so many books, but
yeah.
what is your process these days? And I guess what kind of content would you like to focus on in the near future?
Well, I think the experience, I love it. It's like I can't actually imagine doing any other job. It's yeah, it's just fun, like sitting down with a blank page in front of you and just writing things. It's a bit overwhelming sometimes, and some I kind of go through like sometimes I'm quite motivated, and other days I write like a tenth of what I actually should write in that day. But for the future, I wrote one book. It was short stories about life in Canada. So it sells quite well actually, and is quite popular and has very good reviews. So it's like the stories about um, kind of just like going to watch a hockey game, or like going to watch like a Canadian Football League game in November or December, and you're like wearing your winter coat and you have your sleeping bag and stuff, or like going canoeing in the rain and stuff like that. Um, so I think I need to start writing more kind of like creative things, but it does take a lot of energy because I wrote all these stories just kind of out of nothing. And it actually required a lot of like energy and capacity from me to just do that, as compared to like something like I have a book like 1001 English phrases and expressions, which, you
Right.
know, I just write the phrase or expression. It's like creative
Uh,
energy. It's like I put effort and time into it. But um yeah, so I think the way forward is kind of like these short stories. I think those are popular. People love reading stories, and yeah.
I feel, and it's something you created. It's not just taking a phrase and
Mhm.
putting it there. But although
Yeah.
both of them, you've got audience that reads it for for education, but you've got other
Mhm.
people reading it for enjoyment, and it's also putting yourself into those pages.
Yeah.
But it is very difficult,
Mhm.
whether it is creating lesson plans, whether it's creating videos or writing blog posts, or whatever you're busy with, or creating lesson material. It's kind of
Mhm.
difficult to it's difficult to find the focus for it. It's easy to just,
Mhm.
oh, I don't feel like it, or you watch a YouTube video, or you do something else.
Yeah. Yeah.
How do you do it? Do you just will yourself into getting through the like 1,000 words a day or 5,000 words a day, or do you have to get into like a flow state?
These days I'm not at my most productive, so that's like kind of a tough question to answer. However,
Yeah.
generally I do my best if I get up like early, and kind of just grab some coffee or whatever and a bit of breakfast and just start working. I try to be super productive until like around like lunchtime, and then I'll have lunch, and then I'll usually like do some exercise, like play tennis or go for a bike ride or whatever, just something to kind of like clear my mind. And then I'll come home, and then I'll do some of the like easier things, like kind of some social media stuff, or like taking care of the financial stuff, paying my employees, like that kind of stuff for my business, and answering emails, whatever. But I do my best if I like focus probably from like about 7 a.m. to like around lunchtime. And yeah, I just my
Well,
weakness is that I check like Facebook all the time, and I'm just like, I'll just check
yeah.
my email again. So I know that's my major weakness. So it's like, yeah,
But it's
it's
fine.
tough sometimes.
I think it's so great that you wake up and you get your work done. It's like that book, what, Eating the Frog, or Eating the Frog First. You
Yeah,
take the most at the start of the day. You do the toughest
yeah,
parts, and then you've got time to do other things, and you feel like
mhm,
you've accomplished something very early. I think that's why a
yes,
lot of people like
yeah,
to exercise early too. Now, what's interesting is, now, like you said, you go to the conferences now,
mhm.
and you're recognized by people, and
Yeah,
usually it's quite good because people see you, they get to know you through
yeah,
your content, and more like to support you because they feel like they build this personal connection. But
mhm.
has there been some disadvantages from being online and putting out books and things? Are there some difficulties about that, negativity, or?
Yeah, there's definitely some haters for sure.
Mm,
I found actually when I was living in Korea, it was a lot worse. There's, I don't know, for whatever reason, I think Korea kind of attracted or attracts some people that were not that happy with their lives. And just a kind of like Korea expat teacher special is to kind of like anyone who like starts an expat bar or starts a YouTube channel or writes a book or whatever, or just
mm.
anything besides teaching. The other teachers would just like not be that supportive of it for whatever reason. I'm not sure why. So
Crabs in a
I think
barrel, perhaps?
I don't know, or they just were jealous that it wasn't them who'd
No.
come up with like this other thing. I don't know, whatever it was. But so that was kind of my experience in Korea. But since I moved to Canada, it's like no problem at all. I've
Accepting.
experienced
Oh, yeah?
very little negativity. But like negative book reviews for sure are
Mm,
I mean, there's some that have, like, good feedback, like, the font is too
mm,
small, it was difficult to read, and then I'm like, "Oh, no,
yeah.
like, okay, the next edition, I'm
Mm.
obviously gonna fix that and, like, take that seriously." But then there's just some negative reviews that, like, someone says, like, "I didn't even read the book, but I just didn't like Jackie's blog post," or, like, something like that, and I'm like, "Oh, why would you, like, go through the
Yeah.
effort of, going and, like, hurting my book sales for this review, and you didn't even, like, read the book," you know? So, but I try not to take it personally,
Yeah.
but it like whenever I see a one-star review on one of my books, I
Oh,
just
it just makes your heart
it
drop.
like yeah, especially if it's a verified review, like they had paid money
Ah,
for the book and we're so unhappy. I just felt like I obviously don't want anyone to be like spend whatever, even if it's 2 or $3 on one of my books and then feel unhappy about their experience. It's like I try not to let like take it personally because there's like lots of people that do get value out of what they had read.
100%. You're going to
So
put content out there, but I feel like it's you can get 99% praise, but it's that 1% that we remember and reflect on, and that's just how we
yeah.
are. But just
Mhm.
my reference to crabs in a barrel for those of you
Yeah.
who don't understand it. So if so, let's say everybody does the same job in Korea.
Mhm.
Everybody's an English teacher, and somebody tries to do something different. Instead of that person
Yeah.
getting out of the barrel, the other crabs grab onto it and try and pull it back in. So it's
Exactly.
difficult. Yeah, so it's like you're trying to do something special, and I think I know a lot of people call it a side hustle.
Yeah.
But do you think it's necessary for teachers to consider creating side hustles like that? Would you encourage teachers to do it, or do you think it's only for a select group of people that really are passionate about doing something?
Yeah, I think it's for, like, people that are passionate about if they wanna do it, for sure. I mean, everyone has their own things they're passionate about, and for me,
Mm.
I've always been interested in, the business world, for sure, and, like, online business, and I actually think I should have studied business in university and gone on to the corporate
I
world. I've
think you would
always
have had
had
a
a
knack for it if you
yeah,
focused on that.
I think I would have been the CEO of some big company by now, probably, but,
Yeah.
so it's like that's always been what I've been interested in. I've always
But
listened to
but
the
in
business
life you
podcasts
don't
and
get redos. So,
mhm,
it's not like, oh, I should go back. So you're making the
yeah,
best out of what
yeah,
you studied too, and then
mhm,
the passions that you found later in life,
yeah,
and starting a business. You're still
yeah.
doing it, but maybe just a little bit different.
Yeah,
Okay.
I like love
No,
teaching. I love teaching, and it was an interesting experience, and I'm happy I got to live in Korea for 10 years, which is, yeah, kind of just amazing to, like, actually be in depth experiencing another culture, and, yeah, I'm also just really happy the way this worked out, with the business
do
thing
you
too,
still have
so,
friends
yeah.
from Korea that you talk to, or?
Yes, yeah, I talked to a few people, a couple Koreans and then a few, expats as well, and we talk, yeah, every few months or whatever, so, yeah, and they often make their way to Vancouver for whatever reason, so I've definitely met
Hmm.
up with some people, in person as well. Yeah,
Excellent. Well, let's draw a bit on your teaching knowledge.
yeah. Sure.
We've got a question here, and it's by IM, and it's all about. So, when you were in your class, sometimes you've got students
Yeah.
that aren't very motivated. So,
Mhm.
how would you go about motivating your students?
This is a bit of a tough one, I think, but my best advice that I can give is, find out why students need to learn English.
Mm,
So when I taught at university, there was a whole range of like reasons. Some people just wanted to pass like the IELTS exam or whatever to get into like maybe a school in Canada. So obviously those people were very motivated to learn English, while others just maybe like wanted to watch like English TV shows or movies or something. Other people had a like English speaking boyfriend or girlfriend, so they were very motivated. Others just wanted to pass your class and didn't actually care that much about it. So I tried to like ask students like, why are you studying English? They'd often have to take my class as a mandatory class, but I would give students like a little simple survey at the beginning of the year and just say like what would you find the most helpful? What do you want to get out of this class? And students would actually give me these quite revealing answers, and they say like I would say things like, I want to gain confidence in speaking or whatever. So I would try to like focus the classes to kind of meet their expectations, and
Mm,
yeah, just kind of give them what they wanted. I tried to never like just impose my ideas about what they needed in their
mm.
lives or in their English journey. I would actually ask students, and this is
Well,
especially true for private teaching, especially to ask what they want for sure.
Exactly, and also they feel heard. If
Hmm.
so often we're not asked what we want. When we're learning, it's just like, okay,
Yeah.
wait, here's the book. We've got to get through it. It's just what you have to do. But by just
Yeah.
asking them, you're giving them an opportunity to be heard, and it's
Mhm.
especially true for tutoring or one-on-one students, for privates, that you want to find out what these people will learn, and then you personalize it to them so you can
Mhm.
include their interest and what they want to focus on.
For
Yeah,
sure.
I think that's a great answer. And but
Yeah.
you've got many books, by the way, guys. I put Jackie's a link to Jackie's YouTube channel down below, but she's also got many books on Amazon, and she's also on Facebook. So go and check her out. But you've got many books on activities for
Mhm.
learners, and on my
Yeah.
channel too. I most of my videos just activities that I find on your
Yeah.
website or on other
Oh,
websites.
it's
Um,
I love it. I love it.
yeah. No, I look for all the best ones, and then I think, okay, well,
Yeah.
this is something I can use or that I like.
Yeah.
So I always put that together. But in your classes, what kind of activities do you personally use? Because you've shared so many.
Sure. So I kind of have a few like go-to ones, but I generally try to do um, ones that are student-centered to the extreme. I took the CELTA and the Delta courses during my time in Korea, and I remember when I was in the CELTA and I was doing a practice teaching session, and like had already been teaching for a number of years by then. So I was very confident, and I just was like, I'm already a great teacher, like no
Yeah.
problem, did it. And then my tutor was just like, oh, that wasn't actually that student centered. And I was like, I don't know about that anyway. But so he challenged me. He was like, okay, try like the next lesson, see if you can cut down your talking time to like very like way like less of a time that you're talking and more of the time the students are talking. So anyway, so that kind of influenced me a lot. And then in all the other classes that I did, I would always try to do activities where the students were talking as much as possible. And I was circulating around the class offering feedback. So I was more of a like kind of guide rather than the all-knowing English guru, because I'm actually quite good at English. It wasn't me that needed to practice, it was the students who needed to practice
Wow.
English. So that's kind of what I always thought. Like, I'm already good at English. Like, I don't need extra talking time. It's these students who are only in English for 2 or 3 hours a week or whatever it was. So
So many teachers don't realize that. It's like they think, okay, well, I've
mhm.
got to take up time, I've got to be a role model, I've got to
Yeah,
explain, I've got to teach, but so many students need that time to talk. And so, wow,
yeah,
that's so good. Oh,
yeah,
but I'm curious with this Salta and Delta, I'm considering doing it in the future too. What was it
yeah.
useful, and what was your experience with both?
Sure. Yeah. So I definitely would recommend the CELTA for sure for anyone who's kind of like considering teaching as more than just like a 1 or 2 year kind of fun adventure that they're having in Korea or wherever they are. Yeah, it definitely helped me improve my teaching skills. And it wasn't until I took the CELTA and then especially the Delta that I actually learned English grammar. I was always a little bit fuzzy in all the names and like all of that, but the CELTA like actually makes you learn what all these things are, and it helps you be able to explain. English grammar points and vocabulary, and like give your students reasons why. Because, you know, like when you explain a rule or whatever to your students, obviously there's always one or two students, the best students in the class. Oh, why? Tell me why like a rule is. And I could never explain it until I actually took those courses. And then I was like, oh, it's because of this. And they were like, oh, that's great. Thanks. So I just actually became a lot better teacher after doing it. And I think I served my students a lot better, just that knowledge. And then also when I'm writing books, coming up with activities and stuff for those books, I always kind of keep what I learned in mind, like the very, very student-centered, kind of to the extreme. Yeah, that's kind of the philosophy that I always follow.
Well, it's brilliant, you know, because I've asked a lot of people about their experience, but just understanding that as teachers, we should also, whatever profession you're doing, you should always strive to improve, you know, and it's so easy to just fall into a rut and think I am good enough, instead of thinking, you know what, if I spend a couple of weeks or a couple of months doing this, that will benefit me for the rest of my life and go with me. So yeah, no, I think I definitely I want to work on my grammar next year too. So I'm going to be focusing on that. And then eventually I'd like to do the Salta and Delta too. And we actually had Steve say here from a Salta fellow, high five. Now,
perfect. And actually,
before I go to Kev's question, so you've written many books, and it doesn't want to show.
Oh no, it's frozen. Let's see.
Hi, Jackie. Sorry, my internet went off. Sorry, everyone. It was frozen. Okay. Yeah, my internet went off. I'm so sorry. Everybody's like, oh my God, Eric is frozen. He's frozen.
Oh no, I thought it might have been me. Okay, good.
No. It's my router. And so it goes off all of a sudden. And then I had to plug in the cable here. But sorry about that. He's frozen. Okay, so I don't know if you heard my last question. So Magdalena, you've written many books. For our teachers out there, which one of your books would you recommend?
Sure. So I have some books, 101 ESL activities for adults and then 101 ESL activities for kids. I'd recommend those books. I think they're so helpful. I divide it up into sections. And my goal is that you would kind of, if you're planning a lesson, and then you kind of do your presentation, and then you get students doing a little practice from the textbook or whatever. And then you're like, okay, I want to do something like fun using this grammar, this vocabulary. I need an activity and I want to do a speaking focused activity. And you just kind of open up the book and then you're like, oh, great. I found whatever activity I needed in like a couple minutes, and you could easily adapt it to kind of whatever the lesson is. So that's kind of my goal of that book. Just make it just keep it on your bookshelf. Or there's an e-version as well, and also an audio version. And you could just kind of open it up and then just find what you need in a minute or two and have a great activity for your students.
It sounds so useful, especially, we tend to do the same activities over and over again. And with 101 activities, I'm sure you'll find something new for you to challenge your students with. Now, this is an interesting question I actually was thinking about too, Kev. So Kev asked, where is Jackie 10 years in the future? Now, you're busy building your empire, and I think that's fantastic. But where do you see yourself going in the next couple of years?
Yeah, that's actually a good question. I haven't thought too deeply about it actually. But I don't know. I mean, I think that In terms of like books for English teachers and English learners, I think that the market, it's like I feel like I've written a lot of what there is to be written that's out there. But I think probably later on, I'll write more specialized books, like preparing for the IELTS writing exam or something. So kind of like dive deeply into that world. And I've written more like general books, like vocabulary acquisition books. But I think actually where it's going is like someone will type into Amazon IELTS writing activity preparation, something like that.
Mm.
And there are some
You
books,
want
but
to,
not a ton out there. So I want to
I
just be number one. So yeah, I think that's kind of where it's at these days.
Yeah, for me, I feel the same. I feel like, I make these videos and I create content because ultimately we're trying to serve. We're trying
Mhm.
to. I'm trying to improve. I'm trying to cover every possible topic about teaching I can to
Yeah.
improve myself and just to share some ideas. It pushes me, and I think for you too. Maybe you want to cover all these things where you can help people and you can create
Mhm.
content that's useful for
Mhm.
teachers. Yeah,
Yeah.
so in the future, you'd basically just want to focus. You want to create these books. Or what about your other mediums? Like I see that recently you started focusing a bit more on your YouTube channel.
Yes. Yeah. I think it's like kind of the way of the future audio content, both in podcast and video format. I think there's fewer and fewer readers out there these days and more like audio consumers. So
Mm.
that's kind of was my motivation for getting onto YouTube. So I plan on continuing with that. Yeah, so I think there's like a ton of opportunity on YouTube actually. It's like I know it seems weird to say this, but it's still the beginning stages
Mm.
of kind of the audio revolution. I think we're like just like I know YouTube has been around for years and years, but it's
Mm.
actually the very beginning of people making money on YouTube and making successful careers as a YouTuber. Like that only started in the past couple years or whatever, or past few years. So yeah, so I want to get in kind of on the ground up, which is why I spent a lot of time focusing on
I
audio
think
production. And I took a lot of my written content and made it into audio content. So
audiobooks.
yeah,
100%. I mean, I don't read as much as I should, but if I'm driving
yeah.
somewhere, if I'm taking a walk, I'll listen to Audible and listen to some audiobooks. And it doesn't matter how the content is consumed. You're
Mhm.
consuming learning, and I think you're right. YouTube is just starting out. People are just starting to find their feet, and I'm not saying every single teacher out there should start doing YouTube, but
Yeah.
I think if you want to make a YouTube channel, or if you want to start writing books, if you want to create a podcast, if you want to even teachers that create material, now you can go on Teachers
Mhm.
Pay Teachers, and you can help other teachers by showing them off. Now
Mhm.
it brings me to another question I saw a little bit
Yeah,
earlier. Let me quickly find it there. Give me 1 second. So
sure.
um, if a teacher wants to move and change their career, would you
Mhm.
have any advice for them? I saw a question about it earlier. I'll find it in a second. But
Sure.
would you have any advice for a teacher that was thinking about changing their careers?
Yeah, for sure. So I always, when I was in Korea, I used to blog about this a lot, actually, especially when I was thinking about leaving Korea. Or so if you're teaching somewhere, definitely use your time wisely. I mean, you do have a lot of free time when you're an English teacher abroad or even in your own country, whatever you're doing. You do have free time. So use that to plan for kind of your next step. Whatever that is. So you can do like an online course, you can do some networking, a bunch of research, you could even apply for jobs while you're still in another country, that kind of thing. So I think just be as prepared as you can. I think it's tough. I've seen a lot of people over the years who were in Korea or whatever country, and they left without a plan. And they went to Canada, their home country, and kind of just like burned through like thousands of dollars, basically all of their savings that they had from
Mm.
teaching abroad, and they were living in their parents' basement or like just whatever, and struggled to find work and ended up back in Korea like a year or two later. And I think the way to avoid that situation is to make a plan for sure and use your free time just to like kind of hustle and just like figure out what life in Canada or the US or wherever you're going or whatever career you're going to be working in post
Have a
teaching.
plan. I
Yes,
remember you
exactly.
doing. I think I remember you doing a series on interviewing teachers that left Korea. I don't.
Yes, exactly.
And I remember watching that because I was afraid. I was like, okay, well, if
Yeah,
I want to go back home, these are the things I have to look out for. And I think,
yeah,
yeah, I remember watching it and seeing that so many and experiencing it too. So many people think, okay, well, I saved up a little bit of money. Now I'm just going to
mm,
go back and I'm going to study. And it's
yeah,
and I thought, it might be reckless if you don't have some kind of plan. So I like
hmm,
you. I love your advice of like whatever free time you have, if you want to be successful, if you want to change your career, or with anything in life, you need to spend that extra precious time you have preparing for it. Otherwise, you're more
exactly.
likely to fail. I
Yeah.
remember when sorry, yeah.
Oh, I actually wrote a book. It's called Life After ESL. So I interviewed, I think it was like 55 people who had gone back to their home countries after teaching abroad, and kind of compiled their advice and saw what they were doing for jobs after, um, which was so interesting. You could find it on Amazon if you're in this position and are interested. But kind of some just common things that people did is a lot of people went back to school for a year or two and became a certified teacher in their home country, which is
Hmm.
kind of a great option if you're a bit like kind of at odds and not sure what you do, but or like what you want to do, but still like teaching. And then other people just did very like specific. They did a little certificate in healthcare, or like even I got like the industrial first aid certificate and got quite a good job out of that. So yeah, there's a ton of options. So just do your research and get prepared, and yeah, you'll be fine for sure.
Excellent. Well, we've got some really nice messages here. Absi
Yeah.
says Jackie should open her own language school. But Marta D says, Jackie, I love the
Yeah.
content on your channel and your books are so useful for teachers. Maybe some illustrations could help our busy minds go through them more easily.
Yes. I
Okay, well,
do
that's a
actually. Yes, I do have a graphic designer working for me now. She does the video production, and she also used to be a graphic designer. So she's working on kind of upgrading the content of not the actual content, but like the design of the books. So things like that are coming for sure. When it was just me doing most of it, I am not a super creative person in terms of like illustrations and design and that kind of stuff. So that's why you see what you see is just not what I'm good at. So, however, it will get better in the future for sure. Yeah.
excellent. Yeah, I think
Mm.
we should devote we're trying to do the best with the time we have. So
Mm.
when it comes to um, if you can find someone that can do the illustrations, or you can find someone to
Yeah.
do the editing, at first you need to learn some basic skills, because
Yeah.
nobody has the money to just start getting people out there. But
Yeah.
so you basically learn basic skills, you learn the platform, and then
Yeah.
once you reach a level of success, then you can start delegating and finding people to do the things
Mhm.
that you might not be good at or might not enjoy, or you can invest your
Mhm.
time differently. Now, here's a good question by Jay Louise, and he says, when we train pre-service teachers, is it good to mention our bad experiences in our training classes? Hello from Mexico. So, what do you think?
Hmm.
If we're teaching trainers, do you think we should tell them about some of our bad experiences?
Yeah, for sure. I think it's like that can be quite helpful. Um, to just talk about, yeah, things that have gone wrong. And I mean, when I blog or like talk on my YouTube videos or even in my books or whatever, I for sure will mention like something like, oh, this is the mistake that I made. And especially I often try to write mostly like teaching tips in my
Mm,
activity book. So each activity will have a little teaching tip. And I'll mention things that can go wrong. And honestly, they're all based on my own personal experiences. Like I've done this like
mm.
bad thing that resulted in chaos or just like unhappy students or whatever. So yeah, don't be afraid to mention your own bad experiences.
I would
Yeah,
I would put a caveat there. I think it's useful to say, okay, well, these bad things happen, so you've got to be prepared. Or I
yeah,
made these mistakes, and I'm telling you about it so that you don't make the
yeah,
same mistakes.
exactly.
Or you should consider some things. So I would do that, but I wouldn't tell these horror stories just to scare teachers or scare
No,
people
no.
from being afraid of doing that. Because often, actually, you know what you should do a book on is like 100 horror stories from teaching, and you just go onto Reddit and you find the scariest things that happen, and then so many teachers will
Yeah.
leave. So I don't think you want to demoralize teachers, but if there's a good lesson in what you're telling them, I think that should be really
Oh, for
useful.
sure. Yeah, I always keep that in mind. Like, why am I telling people? Like, I actually don't love, like, when the expats in Korea used to go to when I was there, we'd go to the bars or whatever and have a few beers, and people would just talk about like their kind of teaching horror stories. And I didn't actually like love those situations. I just, and some people would talk about their students in quite a negative fashion. And I tried to avoid that always, actually. Like, I didn't like ever thinking that my students were these like stupid people or whatever. Like, it was just actually horrifying to me that other teachers would say that, because I always just thought, even though he's not good at English, he's studying mechanical engineering. Like, he's obviously
Yeah.
very good at math and science, and like, he's obviously not a dumb person. Like, he just isn't that good at English, which is okay. And he's in my class and he needs my help. So it's like, why would I disrespect someone by thinking that? Yeah. So try to avoid the horror stories of the terrible students and anything that would kind of put your students in a disrespectful light. Always avoid it 100%.
Well, I love that idea. I think that's right. And then Mrs. Abuela, hello. And then Steve says, Eric, I think it does matter how content is consumed. I think it's directly relevant to our needs regarding retention and implementation. I agree, Steve. I'm just saying that, listening to information is maybe it's not the same as reading it for our retention, and we can take notes, and we can skip back, and if we didn't hear something, it's very difficult to go back and listen to it again. But in a book, you just page back and you find it exactly. So it is different, but I just think it's more valuable to get the knowledge in any way that you can. And if it's easier for you to consume on the road, or then it's better than nothing. That's what I wanted to mean. But thank you for calling me out. Now here's something that I'm kind of curious about, and this is something I was thinking about, is going to more webinars, and also perhaps going to conferences like the TESOL conferences in Korea. I think I've only been to one. But recently I've been thinking, Eric, maybe you should create a talk about something and go and talk at some of these. And you mentioned earlier that you went to some of them. What was your experience like going to these conferences?
Sure. So I presented a lot at COTESOL pretty much every year, and I would do like the local conferences or the regional ones as well. So I've done maybe, I don't know, I want to say like 10 or 15 different presentations over the years. And I haven't gotten involved in doing it in Canada. And it's actually something I miss. It was so valuable. Like, if I was doing a presentation on whatever, like ESL speaking activities, it kind of helped consolidate my own knowledge of it. And I knew if people were at a teaching conference, they had high expectations for like actually, like spending their weekends learning about teaching. They actually wanted like some good information. And just some helpful things to take from that. So as a presenter, it really helped me in a lot of ways, I think, and helped with networking as well. I met a lot of people through that. And just as an attender of those conferences, my experience was that it was a bit hit or miss. There were some really, really great presentations and also some very terrible ones. I hope that I wasn't one of the terrible ones, but so it's a bit hit or miss. So I just would go and I would look at it like, I'm going to try to take at least one thing from every presentation. So even if I wasn't impressed with what the person was saying or just how they were presenting it or whatever, I would just say, what's the one takeaway that I'm going to get from this, and try to be, kind of have a positive attitude about it. So, however, the networking opportunities are endless for sure. So that was kind of the main reason, I guess, that people would go to those conferences, which I really enjoyed.
I'm a bit nervous to go to some of the conferences for the networking, because I used to go to conferences and sit in the back, not say a thing, and
Yeah.
make notes. But I love your positive mindset of finding just one good thing, even though, maybe you disagree with the speaker, or you dislike the way that
Yeah.
they're presenting, but you find that one positive thing and you focus on that. And I think if I ever do a presentation, I'm going to start it off by saying, listen, guys, you might not enjoy my talk, but I want you to find one positive thing from this. Well,
For sure.
that's
Sure.
great. And what about webinars? Have you tried some of those?
I know that there are actually a lot of kind of ESL teacher entrepreneur types who are doing webinars and doing quite well with them, actually. I just never have ventured into that world. I don't know. I just I think that my style is just focus on a couple things and just to do it well. So I think my two main areas that I focus on are books and YouTube, and I try to do them well. I don't want to spread myself too thin. Um,
Mm.
Even though I could find some success in webinars, I think, but yeah, I just don't necessarily right now want to put the energy and time into figuring that out and building an audience and that kind of thing. So
No, that's important.
mm,
I totally support that, instead of spreading yourself too thin. Now,
mhm,
it just occurred to me. So,
yeah,
obviously, I look up to you a lot, and I kind of see
yeah,
you as like not a mentor, but someone I look up to
mm,
doing something different.
yeah.
What about you? Do you have someone that you aspire to be like, or somebody that inspires you, or that you look up to? Who's that
Yeah, sure.
person for you?
So there's this guy, Pat Flynn, and
Uh,
he has the website called Smart Passive Income. He's not a teacher at all. He's like an online business guy, and I have been following him since like the very early days. And he had a very simple website, and now he has a huge empire, like a massive empire with multiple podcasts and a big team of people. And yeah, so he's kind of the one I look to. And I've actually been on his podcast a few times. He has a podcast called Ask Pat, and he gives
uh,
advice. So I've been on that a few times. I was on Smart Passive Income podcast one time. He took an episode from my yeah, just from my appearance on Ask Pat. And yeah, so I ask him questions about things, and he's given me actually such good advice. So he's kind of a mentor from a distance, actually, but then also I've talked to him a few times, and he's just kind of gotten to like the heart of like what the actual problem was, and been like, okay, well, you know what direction you need to go in or whatever. And like, yeah, I've taken his advice, and he's just a really smart guy and very kind and super supportive. And yeah, so anyone who wants to
he
get into online business, have a look at his stuff for
At
sure.
Pat Flynn. Yeah,
Pat
what's
Flynn,
that
yeah.
book he wrote? Something about fly, not learn how to
Yes.
fly. Something.
Oh, Will It Fly, I think, or
Will it fly?
something.
Yeah.
Maybe? I'm not sure. I haven't read it exactly. Yeah, so I'm not
Huh,
sure exactly. It might be Will It Fly, I think.
huh. Well,
Yeah.
it's great. So I think we should all have someone that we can look up to and can learn from.
Mhm.
There's we're very fortunate that there are people out there that have learned how to do certain things.
Yeah.
And what about as a teacher? Was there ever a teacher that stood out to you that you kind of you were impressed by, or that you wanted to, that you think is like a great teacher to model yourself as?
Um, I think that it's actually was a major weakness of my teaching journey is that I didn't really get a chance to observe other teachers. I don't know, it's just like if you work in a Korean university or Hagwon or whatever, it's like you're a bit of a lone ranger. You're like actually just doing your own thing all the time. And yeah, so I think it's something that I lacked actually. Was kind of just models of like good teaching. But when I did the CELTA course, we observed a couple lessons that the tutors did, and I was just like, oh, this is like yeah, so it was kind of the first time in my teaching journey that I actually saw teachers that I respected. I had like heard or seen other teachers that I worked with kind of informally, just like they were next to me and the walls were thin, or they left their door open and I
Mm,
left my door open because it was hot or whatever. And I don't know, I think for native English teachers, I think there are some good ones, but
mm,
on the large part, a lot of people don't necessarily have training um, in that field and aren't necessarily like doing the kind of communicative style of teaching, student-centered. I wouldn't
Mm,
say that the average foreign teacher teaching in Korea, at least, is
mm.
following those principles. So what I saw, I was often more kind of like, oh, what's that guy doing? Like, that's
Well,
something I
I'm
want to
glad I'm not
follow.
in that class. I'm glad I'm not a student. You know.
Yes,
No,
exactly.
I totally agree because, and I've said this a few times because I understand what you after going through your content, I feel very similarly,
Yeah.
and that is that I wish that we had more opportunities to sit into each other's classes, and even
Yeah.
for teachers too. You go into a class and you start teaching, and you don't want people to see this is your safe zone. Only the students
Yeah.
see you. You don't want to be judged and let's say you make a mistake, you don't want other people to see you teach, so we're
Oh,
we're
yeah.
very protective of our classes. But
Yeah.
I think last year, in the past couple of years, I just thought, man, I would really like to watch other teachers perform. I could learn so much from them.
Mhm.
And I would have an open door policy too. If anybody wanted to sit into my class, you're more than welcome. And I think,
Mhm.
when you first start teaching, obviously you don't want to do that because people might laugh at you or they might call you a fraud. But
Mhm.
if we really want to improve, we're going to have to try and look at each other. We can and
Mhm.
learn from each other, and that's only going to happen if we can sit into our classes.
It was so
Um,
helpful doing this CELTA, having, like, the observed teaching practice, and a tutor and other students in the class giving you feedback about your teaching. Um, I think that I improved a lot because of that for sure, and
how
it's
many
like
how many lessons did you have to teach? Because I know that, okay, so
Mhm.
you prepare your lessons and daily
Yeah.
lessons, but how many times did you have to teach? Or um,
I think it was maybe I did it years ago, like 10 years ago, but I think it was either 4 or 6 lessons. It was at least 4 that we had to do over the course of it. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. Well, I did my teacher training, and I think I did it. Um, how long did I do it for? Yeah, but you basically sit in the same teacher's class. When I was doing my teacher's training, then you've got to go to a school
Mhm.
and you sit in the same teacher's class and you learn from that teacher, which is fine.
Yeah.
But I think it would have been helpful if you can actually rotate and see a few teachers do it, or like you said with Salta.
Mhm.
And that's why
Yeah.
I hope in the future more teachers would actually record themselves or be
Yeah.
more open and share their good ideas or share their problems or share what they're doing
Mhm.
in the class so that we can learn from them, because it's such a
Yeah.
secretive practice being in the classroom.
Yes, it is. Yeah, and I think, yeah, recording classes, but that brings a whole other kind of host of problems. Do all the students want to be recorded and, that kind of thing. So I think it's tough to do. And yeah, I agree that you don't want to invite someone in your classroom if you're not that confident in teaching. However, yeah, I would invite anyone into my classroom these days. I feel confident and like I'm not worried about any, something negative
Yeah.
happens. I think we can laugh about it after and just say, wow, that was like really, that didn't go how I thought it would go. Or like,
Yeah.
wow, I didn't plan that activity enough. Or like something like I would probably
But that
laugh and
comes
make fun.
with
Yeah.
experience. But Jackie, we're
Yes.
almost done with an hour. It just flew
Yeah.
by, and I was offline for 10 minutes of the
Yeah.
hour. I can't believe it went by so quickly.
Yeah.
I really wanted to say I'm so excited that you came on because I've been wanting to chat to you for a long time. And I
Mhm.
also wanted to show you off to my viewers to know that there's
Yeah.
someone out there creating books and helping teachers. So
Yeah.
yeah, anything final words, things you want to talk about? We've got a minute or two left to just share what you're busy with. And
No, I think I'm good, and I actually also really appreciate what you're doing. When I saw your YouTube channel for the first time, I just really thought like, wow, Eric like is such a great teacher. I think that you would actually be one of those amazing teachers that everyone should sit in your class and kind of see what you're doing. And then I had you on the podcast, and we were talking about like mothers and Father's Day activities. But it ended up becoming this like very interesting conversation about teaching and kind of philosophy and style of teaching and that kind of stuff. And I thought like you actually like really, really care about your students. So I think that's kind of the big takeaway. If you like really care about your students, you'll do well at teaching. And after all, it's like about a relationship in the end. It's not about what activity you use or like the
yeah,
resources or like groups or like whatever. People know if you care about them or not.
right.
So yeah, just keep that in mind and you'll do well with teaching.
I really like that comment. You know, when I go into a classroom, I think the one thing that the students should know that I care and that I'm there for
Yeah.
them. And you know, I
Mhm.
might forget their names or I might not teach them in the correct way, but
Yeah.
you know, if they know that I'm there and I'm trying to be a positive influence,
Mhm.
they'll do so much more. Uh, Eric is
Someone says
married
you're
to
married to your job.
Kev. He's been on fire today. Thank you, Kev. Marta says, I'm also Trigger. I really like to
Mhm.
immediately on your YouTube
Yeah.
pick, the one I used. So yeah,
Yeah.
thank you, Marta, for coming. Absolutely
Thank
great
you.
job, both of you. And Steve, thank you for sitting through too. Your legend for coming on. He says, thank you for bringing on Jackie. Well, everyone, I just want to say, go and check out Jackie's YouTube channel. Go and check out her books. And also she's on Facebook too, bringing out content and great activities. Jackie, thank you so much for coming on. It was really a pleasure.
Thank you. Yeah, it was great talking to you. And thanks for good questions, everybody, as well.
Okay, everyone, have a nice day, and I'll see you next time.
All
Bye-bye.
right. Bye.